In today's video, I'm going to break down how I took one SKU to over $350,000 in just 30 days. But more importantly than that, we're going to show how I did it, walking back over a year and showing a blow-by-blow, step-by-step analysis of how this was possible. Let's go. What is up, guys? Welcome to Heist, the Amazon-focused YouTube channel that holds nothing back. And today's video, frankly, is a doozy and no exception. I'm going to show an end-to-end analysis over multiple phases and over 1 year on how I led to bringing a SKU, which over the past 30 days, which we're going to show some real numbers from my computer, how we took it to over $350,000 with a single SKU. Like anything at Amazon, it's never a straight line. There's always a story, and there's much more than the glamorous screenshots that happens behind the scenes. And in today's video, we break it all down. So before we get into the story, let's show that this is legit, going into my Seller Central account and into my Sellerize account so you can see the actual revenue, the actual stats, and the actual profitability. Let's go. Okay, guys, so since the proof is in the pudding, numbers don't lie, and screenshots hide, but videos don't, we're gonna jump right into the Seller Central account for this brand and show you the actual numbers. So we'll start off by just showing that today is, see if it'll zoom in on that, December 16th. And yes, those are the two most adorable Shih Tzus on planet Earth, Sugar and Ginger, who are my little baby girls. But that aside, let's jump in and show the detailed page and stats and traffic. November 17th is the start. And then here we go again, December 16th. Is today. We'll regenerate this and bada bing, bada boom. So we'll see here 29,000 sessions, about an 8.77% conversion rate. And there we go, $356,866.67. A single SKU, 30 days. Revenue is obviously fantastic. It's good to see underneath the hood in Seller Central. We're going to now jump into Sellerize so you can see the profitability, which is as important, if not more obviously, than the actual top line numbers. Okay, so within Sellerize, we'll go here November 17th to December 16th and run that. And you'll see here the profitability on this was $173,000, 2,500 orders. Only 310 of those were advertising because I shut ads off for most of this period because had organic rank, there was no need to do advertising, and this drained additional profits by not having to run ads. 174 run promo, 62 of them were refunded. This one right next to it here that brought in $34,000, 266 orders was the variation ASIN, which I did a separate video on. That one also brought in a little north of $19,000. This is the US marketplace, 30 days. No numbers are hiding in here. This is the real deal profitability, net profits after ads and after returns. So with that we validated the numbers, let's get into the equally important narrative on how exactly this transpired. Be sure to stay through to the end of this video because I'm going to break down all of the lessons learned, which is as important as the narrative I'm about to go through. So let's dive into it. Okay, guys, like anything in life, there's rarely an overnight success story, and this past 30 days was definitely not one. In fact, this story starts back in the spring of 2019, and there has been a lot of decisions, a lot of hard work, a lot of stressful, sleepless nights that led into what's happened here in Q4 of 2020, and we're about to break it all down. There's really multiple phases. There's a research phase, there was a launch phase, there's a peak phase in 2019 Q4. There was the pain phase, which I'm going to get into some really gory, sad, painful stories that occurred earlier this year with this SKU. There is a decision phase, and I think this is critically important to put up larger numbers, multi-six-figure numbers, you've got to commit to an uncomfortable amount of inventory, and we're going to get into that decision phase. And then obviously the money phase, which has really transpired over the last quarter, last couple months, and we'll get into even more numbers than I showed than just the last 30 days in this. Again, be sure to stay through to the end. We're going to talk about lessons learned throughout this entire journey. So let's start by the research phase. So the idea for this particular product came back in spring of 2019. This is definitely a product that leans a little bit more to winter. Certainly Q4, it's a giftable product, although it can be sold throughout the year. So it was a little bit off season when this idea came up. I was actually in a Pottery Barn store. So this was a home goods brand and product. And a lot of times I'll come up with interesting ideas. I'll jot them into my notes on my iPhone. And then when I get back home, I'll kind of bring it up on Amazon and see if it's a legit opportunity. So kind of started off as a kind of retail idea, looking through Pottery Barn. Also, I had a factory that I've used for some cashmere in the past. So it's kind of a textiles, I guess you could say, factory. Makes some of the best cashmere. And so I kind of had them for some previous projects that I didn't end up pulling the trigger on. But I came back to them for this particular idea because I thought they could pull it off, and they ended up having a really fantastic option. I was also looking at an upswing strategy. So this is something that had existing demand on Amazon. I never go after products that have zero demand and that I think might be something. There's a baseline amount of demand. Most of the players were doing about $10,000 a month in the off season and up to $50,000 during peak season. So I know that there's demand there, but I also felt that this particular aesthetic and concept within the home goods marketplace was going to increase over time. And we've certainly seen that transpire. So that was the research phase, started way back in spring of 2019. This was the market at that time. This is actual screenshots. I like to document most of my launches so I can go back and learn from them. So I definitely would recommend that everybody watching this channel starts to document their journey and evaluate it, even if you're not going to share it with the world like I do. But you can kind of see here, right? This was done in the spring. It was $13,000 roughly for the top players. The average review rating was 4.12, which is one of the things I liked about this market. You could get in there, and if you had a decent product, a 4.5 star or above, would really give you an advantage. And there was a particular pain point with this particular product category that I solved with some of the material technology and innovating with the factory to come up with a cool concept. And then you can kind of see here seasonality. Obviously, it's a big Q4 spike and then kind of steady eddy through the rest of the year, which is kind of predictable. So that was the market back when this was done. It's obviously increased a lot since then, and we'll show that with the sales here. So the product, again, identified in March, got samples in April and May. So, a month or two after that, started to kind of get samples in, customize the color features of this particular product, and did some unique things with the packaging. Also in May and June, got all of that stuff kind of tightened up, and then placed the initial order, which was a relatively small order at the time. It was a 200-piece order, which was below MOQ, so I negotiated with the factory on that one. And then had 30 days production time plus $45 or 45 days roughly on the water, and then to get into Amazon warehouses. And late August, it arrived into Amazon. Here's a key point. I love to launch products in what I call shoulder seasons before the peak, because this particular product, as an example, I could get away with doing 1 to 3 sales per day in August, September, despite the fact that it was going to spike significantly in December. If you were trying to launch this product with 0 reviews, 0 rank, 0 traction in the middle of peak season, it would require a significant amount of investment and daily transactions. But when you do it during slow season, it's a much smaller launch investment. You can cultivate those reviews, get your conversion rate up, test your images, your content, your messaging, optimize your pay-per-click such that when big heyday peak season comes, you can really let it loose and optimize. So key strategy, if you've got a seasonal product, launch it on off season, ideally a month to 3 months in advance of when that peak is, generate your rank, optimize your conversion, and then let it loose during peak season. So definitely did that here, and it was part of the strategy which was outlined. The launch phase, again, off-season launch, wanted to peak by mid-November. So launch kind of late August into early September, cultivate all that stuff, and then really kind of hit stride in mid-November, which actually happened in this case. wanted to generate around 30 reviews and rank it in those 2 months. And then I wanted to test images, optimize pay-per-click, and then kind of test which external traffic sources worked for this particular product. This was the product economics, and it's still roughly the same. The landed cost here is $29, AMZ fulfillment $10. At $100 price point, although we sell it for much more now, is $15. And then the monthly warehousing is roughly 50 cents a unit. I should say, talking about Q4 being a little bit wild in 2020, I wasn't getting my LTL appointments after my initial batch sold. So we were actually doing UPS, SPD delivery for all this. So my costs went up about $5 a unit. But you know what? You've got to have the buffer in your margins, and you got to suck it up sometimes to get the operational things done. Sometimes that requires paying more for air freight to get stuff here. And then sometimes on the ground in the US, you got to just bite the bullet, pay that $5 plus per unit to get it in Amazon warehouses, because actually getting it in, selling for less profit is more important than not being able to sell it at all. So, but this is rough economics for most of the season. The total cost here, and then the launch price was around $75. I honestly thought that this product was going to land around $99.99. Most of the products in the category were kind of in that $70 to $90 range. I thought I could play the premium angle, US brand, really good imagery, really high quality material product. So I kind of thought, hey, I could get away with $10 to $20 more than what my competitors were selling for. On the high case, I kind of thought, hey, we might be able to get this up to $120. I can say that most of 2020, this product was selling from between $110 all the way up to $150, which is where it's been selling the last 2-3 weeks due to stock shortages. So we've blown the roof off this one. In many cases, it's more than double the price of the competition. So when you go premium, when you build a good brand, when you have a good audience, pro photography, and you approach it with Amazon skills, you can command this, and it has a massive impact on how you can scale and grow your business. So this was the profit ranges in these scenarios. Again, you can kind of just do the math in your head. When we're selling it for $150, it's just extraordinary the profit that we're getting on this. So kind of at launch price, we were still around 27% on gross margins. That's not including advertising and some other costs. In the target case, 45%, which is right in the wheelhouse that we want to be in. And then in that upper echelon, it was north of 50%. I can tell you net after all of my Amazon expenses, after all of the returns, all that stuff, this business with this SKU has been doing over 50% net margins here in Q4. So it's been a moneymaker. But this kind of breaks down exactly what those product economics are. The launch economics, again, we kind of had 200 units in the initial batch. I kind of ranked it within 1 week. I had to immediately place another order. So the first kind of couple batches of orders was 800 units total. So it was kind of down here. So what I like to do when I come in, and as you guys know this, if you watch any of my launch videos, which I will link all of my launch playlist videos down below. So if this is your first time here, you can check them out. Also subscribe if it's your first time here, so I can make money off your eyeballs, so I can make money on ads, and we can grow this community and have something cool develop. I was joking about the ads, by the way, although I do like making money from YouTube ads. So thank you. Also, get Sell Rise and get Helium 10 if you don't already. I get like 25% of whatever you spend on it. So it's pays for my brewskis and some other stuff. So thank you. So 800 in the like launch low case, it was $16,000 in gross profit, medium case 36, high case 52,000. It's really good to map these scenarios out so you kind of know what best worst case can turn out to be. In terms of my return on invested capital, which I also like to calculate, assuming 800 units, the investment is $23,000 in COGS. So I'm gonna have to pay the factory $23,000. Low case 70%, which would not be good. This would not be sustainable unless it was over 100% in my view with my criteria. Although if I hit that medium case, right, 156%, awesome. If I hit the high case, 225% ROIC, which is right where I'd want to be. In fact, we're much higher than that now, and it is a cash machine. What this also informs is, hey, in those different cases, how much can I afford to launch on this product? So if I was doing this medium case, I ordered 800 units for 23 grand. Basically means that I could still hit my threshold for return on investment of 100% and spend $13,000 on the launch. This includes giveaways, external traffic, any other sunk costs that go into launch, that's what I could afford. If things are humming and I'm able to sell it and command for a higher price, that budget goes up to $29,000. So before I've even listed the product on Amazon, I have a clean, crisp idea of what my various scenarios look like, what my various profit scenarios could be, and equally important, what my return on invested capital is, as well as how much I can afford and should budget to be able to launch the actual product. So this was all done in advance. I suggest that everybody do it with every single launch that you do. So this was 2019, moving on to peak phase from that kind of product and launch phase. This is the total 2019 sales. Again, launched late August, so there wasn't a whole lot of runway on this one, but call it 4-ish months. 19,000 sessions, conversion rate was 5.18%. Pulled in $127,000 ultimately, which was pretty solid for a brand new product, obviously, and not kind of knowing how it was going to shake out. Also, if you kind of remember that market analysis, doing those top ones doing around $12,000 a month, obviously exceeds that peak, kind of turned out to be fantastic on this one. 2019 Q4 sales, obviously a little bit less impressions because it's only a 3-month window. Conversions a little bit higher. Oftentimes during Christmas, especially for gift items, you'll see a peak in conversion rate. And this was $112,000 during the months of October, November, and December. So the pain phase. So we kind of made it through Christmas, had some stock outs because obviously wasn't anticipating all of that to kind of transpire, but kind of had, I think, like a 2-week stock out in late December, got some stock back in. Throughout that period, I had a couple hijackers when I was stocked out, but when I came back in, they kind of went away. They came back with a emergence in Q1. Had this brand trademarked, but it was in process. So, and this is before IP Accelerator and any of that kind of stuff. So had to kind of ride it out. Couldn't necessarily enforce hijackers in the way that you can if you have brand registry. So I kind of submitted an IP violation complaint on some of the sellers that were jumping on the listing, and a horrendous thing happened. Amazon not only nixed and got rid of the hijackers that were on the listing, they actually deleted and closed and suspended the entire ASIN. This is at a time where we ranked significantly for, I think, like 75 keywords. We were humming. We were one of the top players in the category, top reviewed in the category. And for over 50 days, this product in this ASIN was suspended. Tried everything I could, tried all the appeals, wasn't working. I ultimately, and this is again where relationships matter, I've kind of brought this up numerous times on this channel. I had a buddy of mine that I work with at a previous company. He ended up moving to Seattle and working for Amazon in the business group. I basically pinged him on Facebook. I said, hey man, I hate to do this. I don't like to ask for favors. However, this is my situation. I've got a product where I'm losing about $40,000 a month. I can't do anything. Is there anything or anybody you can put me in front of to help get this addressed? Took probably another 10 days or so, but he kind of had forwarded it on, said, hey, we care about customers at Amazon. This is not BS. This is an issue if customers aren't able to access a product that they want to buy. Got it in front of the right people, ultimately brought the ASIN back. But 50 days down, you start back at square one. Had to lick my wounds. You can't fantasize about those 70 keywords that you ranked for. You can't fantasize how you were the top of the category. You can't fantasize about the fact that there's $40,000 a month coming in from this product. You just got to bite down on the mouth guard, suck it up, say crap happens, and it did in this case, and I had to rebuild. That rebuild phase probably took a couple months, so it wasn't until probably April or May that this thing started to kind of get back to some form of normalcy, started to kind of get my ranking back. And at that point, had more fun. I mentioned that this brand, I'd submitted a trademark for this brand. There is a major US retailer that, despite the fact that I probably could have won if this thing went to court, that in the last month, so it passed all the phases of trademark, but in the last month, they basically countered our trademark, filed a complaint with the US government. We got into a legal back and forth with them. They wouldn't stand down. I talked to my buddy who's my lawyer, and he basically said, hey, Adam, like, I think you would win this thing, but there's bad news. It's going to take us probably 1 to 2 years to go through this process. We're going to have to hire witnesses. We're going to have to hire likelihood of confusion analyses, a bunch of stuff. It's probably going to cost you low end 30 grand, but easily could run over $100,000. So I had a decision to make. I'm like, look, I've built this brand. At the time, I think I had 4 or 5 SKUs. I had a good product, had done all this stuff, but I'm like, I don't know if I can kind of go through this legal fight. So we went back and forth. It probably took the better part of 3 months, but we came to a settlement agreement. This particular retailer offered me a lump sum amount of money to abandon the trademark. And then that basically gave me 8 months to sell through the existing product and to use the brand. So they're like, hey, you can use the brand. We're going to give you this check. We want you to abandon the trademark. And then we're going to give you an 8-month sell-off period where you can kind of get rid of the existing inventory that you've got. That becomes important on the inventory decision later, but basically I had through, I think it was the end of February 2021 to use this brand and to sell through any existing branded product that I had. So getting into the decision phase. So this is kind of fast forward to August. Sales have been good. We've kind of brought it back to life. I now have to think about how much is this thing going to move in Q4. COVID had obviously happened. I was anticipating a spike in demand in Q4, but I also knew that the logistics was going to be really tight. This is a really relatively big, small oversize, I think, product. So not easy to move via air, not cheap to move unless you're using truck within the US. A lot of storage costs to keep in mind, especially storing it in California, which is where I like to stage a lot of my stuff. So I did figure out how much I wanted to buy. Also had to keep in mind like, hey, look, if I over order stock on this, I have this branded product that I can't use past February. So I couldn't keep a whole lot of extra around because I knew I had this whole brand change that had to happen. So a lot of inventory, a lot of risk. Ultimately ordered about $90,000 worth of COGS on this one. A key point here. And I think a lot of stuff that's left out of the flashy screenshots and the, hey, I did $1 million this month on Amazon. What oftentimes people fail to let you know is it takes a crap load of inventory and uncomfortable risk to be able to achieve higher sales figures. So in this case, back in August, before I knew what was going to happen over the next 5 months, had to commit to 90 grand worth of inventory. Super uncomfortable, not the easiest decision, but it's a decision that you need to make if you want to play in the big leagues and put up big numbers. You need big inventory amounts. So place the order in August with the plan of getting it to start arriving kind of in October. And then I had this stage plan where I was going to start rifling inventory in stage buckets into Amazon, given inventory limits and stuff. So to keep us on our toes and to have more pain, guess what happened? In October, the ASIN went down again for 10 days. At this point, I had accumulated, I think, over 100 Amazon's Choice badges. Again, was leading the category, although we had some new entrants kind of on nipping at the heels. Went down for 10 days. Amazon being Amazon. You can't control it. All you got to do is be able to react and do what's within your control. Getting back to mental game Mondays, which is a key part of this channel. And Amazon is a mind, you know what, and it is a mental game. So I had to bring that ASIN back, but again, started back, lost all of my Amazon's Choice badges, had kind of rifled down some of the new entrants, had started to make some significant progress. This is after the fact that I've got almost 100 grand worth of inventory on the boat coming in. Like, talk about stress, right? Never easy, never a straight line. But we were able to kind of get it back, luckily, slowly but surely, and then had all the inventory in place, had a really good 3PL and FBM back down strategy, had to spend more money, obviously, on UPS to get some of the stuff into Amazon, but kind of just started feeding inventory, and this is what it looked like for Q4. So we had 45,000 sessions for the single ASIN, 6.8% conversion, so obviously up versus the 2019 stats, which you saw. And then over that 3-month period, which isn't even over, again, we've got like another 2 weeks here to go, $426,000. And then the variation which we created, which is just a color offshoot of this product, had 9,000 impressions. And then between both the FBM and FBA offer, brought in 32,000 on one roughly, and then 12,000 on the other. Here is what the ranking looked like. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of keywords. If you haven't seen this channel before, I do a really in-depth process that I go through on keyword analysis, as well as listing optimization and pay-per-click strategy at launch. but generated at the time of this screenshot 85 keywords. I think it's like 105 today. This one's a couple weeks old. Had 208 words in the top 10 for almost 400,000 in search volume, and then 445 words in the top 50. So Amazon is a game of keywords. Gotta have a good offer, gotta have a good brand, gotta have good photography. But if you wrap it in with Amazon knowledge and understanding keywords, this is the kind of results and impact that you can have. Should also mention that I turned on remote fulfillment, so don't have this brand registered in Canada, but hey, paying homage to the motherland where I was born and raised, I said, hey, let's flip the switch and do remote fulfillment through NARF. Again, also had the Canadian account suspended for, I don't know, like 2 weeks or something like that. So more Amazon fun with this particular brand as usual. But despite the fact that we were down for a little bit because that account was nefariously suspended, brought in like 18,000 bucks Canadian, which I don't know, given exchange rate, what is that now? I don't know, like 10,000 bucks. Tom Wang, if you're watching this, tell me the conversion on this 18,000 bucks. But yeah, Canada A, we brought in 18 Gs with little to no work. That's stuff stored in the US that Canadian customers pay to have imported, and they can buy it. Was actually the leader in Amazon Canada for this particular product category and niche, despite the fact that I didn't even have inventory in Canada. So pretty sweet. The NARF program, remote fulfillment program, is really awesome. Amazon's done something cool there for both Canada and Mexico, and I'll do a separate video on how to execute on that strategy in the future. And then again, for the profit phase, this is kind of looking at all of Q4, not just the 30 days that we looked at the top. 410,000 bucks with that kind of hero ace, and 42,000 bucks in the US for both these for this variation. 197,000 net profit for the one, and 20,000. So over 200 grand in cold hard net cash after returns, after advertising. The only thing left out of that is some of my like ongoing kind of run the business expenses like accounting and software and some other stuff. So pretty awesome, pretty happy with how that kind of turned out. Lessons learned. I think a key thing here is to always research early, despite the fact that this was a product that was pretty heavy in Q4, was analyzing it, bringing in samples in the spring and in early summer, and launch this thing in frankly late summer. So sometimes you got to make those decisions well in advance. You've got to have a really good queue of products that you can turn to at various points in the year, so you can start cultivating them, developing them, and getting them to fruition, which sometimes can take over 6 months, which in this case it did. Riding a wave of existing demand that may spike is a critical strategy. You've got to have a baseline amount of demand. I never suggest that you go in cold with a market that doesn't exist yet. But if you think that market's in its infancy and that market is a decent chunk on Amazon that you can cultivate and win, get in on it early, because then as that demand spikes and grows, and if you can anticipate that, if you're an early entrant and you can build those reviews, build that momentum, build that rank, you can really cash in as that product begins to scale, which obviously in this case scaled in a big way 2019 versus 2020. Amazon is never a straight line. It's never easy. Anybody that tells you that it's easy, flashes screenshots, glamorizes Amazon, has not been through it, or they're lying to you. I'm going to be honest with you. Amazon can suck. They took down my ASIN for 50 days. Later this fall, they took it down for 10. They suspended my Canada account. Externalities with trademark kind of battles, things like that. Like, it's never easy. There's moments in time where it's easy and it feels awesome, but you are going to get knocked on your butt in Amazon. You are going to get punched in the face. You're going to have some evenings where you barely sleep, where you feel like the world is crashing around you. And despite the fact that this one ASIN put up over 350 grand in 30 days, it was no different. There was a lot of stress and strain that went into that reality happening, and there's always a backstory. Be ready for anything with Amazon. Never a straight line, never going to be easy, but damn is it rewarding when it works out. So the other thing I would say is you need to make uncomfortable commitments to do big sales. Anybody that's showing you an ASIN that's doing over 300 grand a month, or doing $1 million a year, whatever it is, it takes a decent amount of risk, and you got to have the stones. Sorry, ladies on this channel, but maybe you have stones too. Who knows? You got to have the stones to buy almost 100 grand worth of inventory. I don't care who you are. It's not a comfortable feeling. There's no guarantees. You never know if it's going to work out, so that's uncomfortable. But it's those kind of risk mitigated, calculated decisions that you need to be comfortable making, especially as you scale, grow, and put up significant figures on Amazon. And then I'll just close, there's a lot of drama with Amazon. It's a love-hate relationship that I have with them. But I'll tell you what, man, is it rewarding when it turns out. If you would have told me 4 years ago when I first started kind of realizing that Amazon was a thing, that I would be able to pull down 200 grand in net profit after everything in a single month from a single product, I don't know if I would have believed you. It can be surreal. It can be rewarding. It can let you know and become the best version of who you are. Sure, it can test you. Sure, it can be stressful. But I'll tell you what, there's no better time than now that I've seen in my lifetime to build a physical products brand. Amazon can be an amazing platform and launch pad to be able to access a crazy amount of customers. And the journey is real. It can happen. And when it turns out well, gosh, it's rewarding. I hope with this channel that I can show you how to accomplish this kind of stuff. It's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to work out in your favor. There's going to be good things that happen. There's going to be a lot of bad things that happen. And I hope I'm real with you on what this journey looks like, but it is rewarding as hell. I hope you lock arms with me and do it yourself. If you're already on your Amazon journey, subscribe if you're not already part of this community. If you are part of this community, thanks for joining me, locking arms with me on this. I don't have all the answers, but as answers come to me, as experiences come to me, I want to use this channel as a conduit to share that story. You guys rock. I've got a fun one in place. I've already started working on the video for next week. It's going to be fun, I think, a bit of a parody on gurus and what's happening kind of in the Amazon space. So I figured, hey, we're getting into Christmas time, having fun with family members, drinking some brewskis, eating some food, and doing things we probably shouldn't to our bodies. But hey, it's fun time of year. I figure let's have some fun with this channel as well. So stay tuned for next week. It's going to be a fun one. Until then, guys, I hope all is well. I hope through all the trials and tribulations, whether you're on the right side of Amazon right now or the wrong side, I hope that it's been a fruitful Q4 for you. I hope you're getting value out of this content. Until the next one, thank you for being here, and cheers.